What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. I have a great guest today. And I love these type of guests where I get referrals from great guests. I mean, I can't imagine Marvin Cotton Jr. and Phillip Sample being in the same room just talking shop, but these guys are out doing stuff in the community and making stuff happen. And so when Marvin gave me Phillip's name, he was telling me a little bit about him, and so I went and started checking it out. What Marvin told me, man, Phillip is I'm going to just read in a little bit about his story, just because it's such a fascinating transformation. But Phillip Sample was born in impoverished Detroit, Michigan. He was raised between the slums of Detroit, Michigan and the gang-ridden Southside of Chicago, Illinois. As a result of a dysfunctional, unstable housing, ill education, violence, Phillip became a product of this environment. He joined a gang at 11 years old, became a leader of his own gang by the time he was 14. Phillip got caught up, got felonies when he was in juvenile, but at 18 years old, he was convicted of 3 counts of assault with an intent to commit murder at the age of 18 years old for anywhere from 12 to 20 years he was looking at. While he was in prison, it just was a complete self-evaluation, self-transformation, and he was released after 15 years in prison. Phillip hit the ground running, and he returned back to his old neighborhood, and he wanted to make amends for his past actions and contribute to rebuilding that community. And he is currently the owner of the Passion of the Life LLC. He's the author of the book, The Passion of the Life, let's see, what is it? The Life, Death, and Resurrection of Phillip Sample. He founded and established Responsible Able Hands and Minds of Detroit. And what I just want to read real quick what it does, because it's everything that we think we want, and he's putting it and injecting it into the community. It's phase 3 of a 3-year plan to build a space, a place where the community can learn, place to inspire the senses, an alternative to incarceration for our youth, a place for resources and opportunity, as well as clearing lots, beautifying lots, establishing gardens and areas of recreation and entertainment and culture. They'll be teaching the youth enduring skills in all different types of fields. And this will continue the process of strengthening the family and community and strengthen the bonds inside the community. Unbelievable stuff. And he's got a documentary that he's working on too. So he's just a busy man. I really appreciate, Phillip, you taking the time here today to get your voice out and your story, because I think it's something that is inspiring, and that's what people need. To hear that, hey, it's not the end. It can be a new beginning, and you completely transformed. So, Phillip, man, welcome in.
Thank you for having me.
So, Phillip, I just touched on it a little bit, but growing up where you grew up, in such a tough environment as a kid, can you bring me back, kind of walk us through your life as a kid when you were in, your family, brothers, sisters? What was life like?
So I was definitely a happy child, irrespective of what was going on around me. I call it my endeavor to fight down the beast.
Yeah.
I grew up in you know, Chicago, Detroit, back and forth all my young life between gangism and drugs and alcoholism and domestic violence and just, you know, all the stuff that we deal with in our communities due to idle hands, dysfunction, and ill education. I wasn't.
I was curious, like with your home life, your direct home life,
So
mom, dad?
mom, single mom. My father was an older married man with children. My mother was a young girl.
Yeah.
He chose family, which makes sense, I guess. I think. But
Any relationship with him, Phillip?
absolute. Only I wouldn't probably know him if he walked past unless I got hit with a, you know, some energy or something, you know. But no relationship with him at all. You know, I actually found him not too long ago, you know, and you know, I was intent on reaching out, but I changed my mind. You know, today I'm driven by firm morals and principles, and I believe a lot of the problems that I faced and went through, and a lot of the problems in the community is due to a lack of father. So I don't respect that. So, you know, I chose, you know, to be just, you know, I'm God's son, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And your brothers and sisters, do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a younger sister and a younger brother. We have different fathers. My brother's father was murdered when he was a baby. I became father-like at 10 years old. My sister father, he's still around, you know, good, positive person, definitely in my life, you know, cool dude, you know, but a whole bunch of that's what, you know, in and out type of dudes looking for whatever they were looking for, and never, you know, formed a relationship with any of them, never really respected any of them. In fact, I always said I would never be that guy, you know.
You almost thought of it as doing the opposite of what they were doing.
Oh, absolutely. You know, life in a garbage bag with a woman can tell you to go come, you know, as she pleases. Never respected them.
So when things, you know, obviously in that neighborhood, what you were seeing as a kid was probably a little bit normalized. Did you fear the streets, or did it feel like that there was something, because you were kind of born into that world, that it felt normal to you?
So I definitely didn't fear the streets. I got 19 aunties and 4 uncles, and we were a tribe, man. Hundreds of thousands of cousins. In Detroit, in Chicago, and we took care of each other. So I didn't fear the streets. I mean, you know, I've been in a house where the house was shot up. Of course, that's a scary moment. But you know, it was.
How old would you have been, Phillip, when that happened? Were you?
Oh, the first time, maybe maybe like 10, 11, you know. But violence nonetheless, from as far as I can remember back, you know, to the point where I was desensitized to it very young.
Because I was, one of my favorite movies is Boys in the Hood, and like, how real is that to, you know, you see the kids walking, you know, Ricky's got his football, they go to see the dead body, and the bigger kids come, and, you know, the one guy takes his football, and the other guy's like, you know, even though they're tough guys, he's like, man, we shouldn't take that guy's ball. I mean, did you have kind of like mentor type people that you looked up to?
Oh, absolutely. My uncles were street people. My older cousins were street people. And you know, as to that part of that movie, that's just the way that we love on one another, you know. You know, it's hard, you know, it's like, it's lion-like, it's like pride-like, right? So, you know, in my opinion, you know, it's a thin line between bullying and preparation, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good statement, isn't it? Because you got to be strong enough to be in that world. Can't be soft. But you got into it really early. I mean, you know, I was reading your bio. You know, at 11 years old, you're in the gang life. 14 years old, you're a leader in the gang life.
Well, I was around gangism like forever. And even when I, you know, made a decision, you know, to embrace that lifestyle, I was still never like into gang violence. Like
Yeah.
that didn't come until much later. Like I tell people, even in my Chicago days, you know, I would be 12 years old and I would catch the bus, the L, you know, from 94th Street to 51st or and walk all the way, you know, through the projects at the time and go to school. And I never had, you know, those type of issues. People knew what I represented, you know, my family represented. So I had a little love and respect on both sides. So I didn't really, you know, participate in gang violence when I was in Chicago. That's a funny thing.
Yeah. So when you got into, so I was going to ask you that. So school wise, did you have a group of guys, friends that you went to school with, and was life, you know, was school? I mean, did you go to school and
So school
normal?
was not school.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 8th grade, 1989-ish.
Yeah.
School was the battle zone, man. School was
Yeah.
you know, like I talk about in my book, it was a division. If you live 6 mile away, you went one way. If you live 7 mile away, you went another way. And God forbid you get caught the wrong way on the wrong day.
Mm.
So school became something else. You know, it's hard to listen when the guy sitting next to you got a hot one in his pocket and can go off at any point. You know, so school definitely became something else. I was intelligent nonetheless, but I just lost it, man. Like you're talking about the past and history and the beautiful things that Dr. King did, but I'm living in poverty and violence and confusion like right now, you know.
Yeah. So when your nightmare happened, the big one, when that all came down on that street corner, can you kind of walk through that whole, you know, that's I can't get a whole lot out of how that could have all felt and when it happened and how it happened.
So just to give you some context, we take to gangism in part due to a lack of not having identity, a purpose, a place. So when gangism offers this, an obsession, or what I would like to call a fatal attraction, ensues. And I became married to that thing. My claim to fame was to take care of my neighborhood, look after the people there, look after the lady next door, and in return, in my neighborhood, I'm loved. I'm celebrated. So on that day, I had already been locked up on a prior gun case, and I was in the halfway house, and I was allowed to go home for a weekend, right? It's like a furlough.
Yeah, you had to pass.
So again, you know, the community, you know, the homeboy, big homie home or whatnot. So it was a party, it was a celebration. And I guess what we call the ops saw that as an opportunity to what we would call slide nowadays, right? So, you know, they came through one time and, you know, just street rules of engagement. That's not something that they do. We don't ride down their block. They don't ride down our block unless it's an ill intention. So, you know, we kind of like, oh, wow, what was that? Prepared accordingly. Had they shot or did what they was going to do at that first pass, they might have got down because we was not ready at all. But you know, we prepared. So unfortunately, they came back, right back. And it went down, man. Gunfire erupted. I found out, so I ran, jumped in the car with my friend. We went to my wife, who is my wife now. We went to her house, and my pager was blowing up, 911. I called the block back. You know, we had a payphone on the block that we would call back, and basically, you know, that's when I found out that a baby had been shot in the crossfire or the shootout or whatever, or a bullet ricocheted off the, you know, some type of way a baby had been shot in the crossfire. So, you know, I fell back on the porch like, oh, what? No way, you know, like, so I told my homeboy, like, take me back to the block. He like, hell no, like that would make no sense. Like, I'm gonna take you to your mama. So I went home. Couldn't sleep, of course, just trying to figure out, like, I didn't see, the streets were clear, but the baby and his mother was actually in the store. Just going through it in my head, like, like what on earth, like how, what's next? Like, the next morning, one of my homeboys had told on me. So the police called me, basically like, you know who this is? I was like, yeah. And he was like, where you at? I'm like, given that you got the number, I'm assuming you know where I'm at. And they did, and they came and got me. And I was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder for the child and 2 counts of assault with intent to commit murder. 3 counts of assault with intent to commit murder. Went to trial. So let me give you some deep psychological stuff right here, right?
Yeah.
I was willing to take a plea for more time if they would have dropped the murder charge on the baby, if that makes sense. I didn't want to go to jail with that. I didn't care if that meant me doing 30 years for assault with intent to commit murder. I can accept that, but I couldn't go to prison with that on me. They didn't buy that, so I went to trial.
I get that.
All during trial, brother, it was 27 witnesses against me, 1 witness for me, bless her heart, and I kind of felt like all the sacrifices that I had made, I devoted my life, my freedom, my safety, I fed these people, and to have nobody in support of, that was like just demoralizing, bro. And then again, some of my own people testified on me. So, I was in a bad way, man. I've been a prayer. I've been a prayer my whole life. I feel even at my lowest of lows, I never lost sight of what God means to me or has the power to do. So at one point in the trial, I got on my knees, man. I was in the bullpen. I got on my knees and said, you know my heart, yada, yada, yada. So this, that, the other. So I go back out into the courtroom. The very next person that took the stand was the owner of the store. And basically in his testimony, he said that it was damage to both sides of the store. Oh, bro, that was like the light came on in the room. The next person took the stand, basically said that it was the ballistic specialist, that shell casings 1 through whatever it was definitely came from the weapon I was firing, but this number, that number, and that number came from a different weapon. So that, anything about law that created what we call a shadow of doubt, right? Got found not guilty of the murder of the baby, but profoundly guilty in my own conscience, of course. And I carry it with me to this very day, man. It's when I think about it, when I tell the story, it's as poignant now as it was that day, you know what I mean? Like 30 years later, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can hear the emotion in your voice when you tell this story.
Yeah.
And it had to have been, what were you feeling when it came back and they said you weren't guilty? I mean, that had to have been like.
It was relieving, but at the same time, not so much so, because again, that didn't bring the child back.
Right.
My first 2 years in prison was how to kill myself without it hurting so bad. Like life called for life, you can't say my bad, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
That was where my thinking was. At some point, that's how the book happened. I would be, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, I'm trapped in the most effed up situation I would have never saw coming, right? So I started thinking about life and just, everything that got me up into that point. I just, started writing stuff down. But, at some point I got possessed to want to live, man, to like, to jump off the cliff or the toilet or whatever. That'd be like the most cowardice thing I could have done.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting though, Philip, how that happens, because I think, I don't know how many people ever get to that point where they get into a really, really dark place and they think that's an alternative. And, when that strikes you that, oh my God, that's the most cowardly thing in the world, that's almost like where it reignites everything that's the good part of you to figure out, okay, how do I climb out of this?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it I need to do to find my passion again? And it sounds like that once that hits you, almost like at a rock bottom, you found your way. I guess there's two ways we always talk about, whether somebody's a victim or a survivor. Victim points fingers and blames and whatever. A survivor just says, I got it. It's mine, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna walk. It somehow gives you strength to will yourself into whatever that is you got to step into. And it sounds like at some moment in the time period, something happened through your self-evaluation that you felt some kind of transformation. Did you write it all before that had ever happened?
No, it was a process,
Yeah.
I wrote the book my entire 15 years and I'm still writing on the book. It's 2 more parts,
Yeah, I saw it says part 1 on the book you wrote. Yeah. You're not done.
So the book saved me, man, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was an event, but even more than that, it was like, so my first study, I studied everything under the sun. One of my first studies was psychology. I wanted to know, why when I get angry, it's so extreme. Like why, like where does these triggers come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I start like again, I caught my case in my perspective in defense of the block, right? Watching my mother fight grown men, being the brunt of the bully, it instilled in me this want to be like, I'm the bully's bully type of mentality, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I felt like even though my methods were ugly, I kind of felt like it was coming from a pure place, right? But I wanted to understand that. I wanted to process all of that, right? So I started getting into the psychology, how the mind works, then sociology, right? How the mind works correspond with how society works, right? And and I began to see myself, man. And in that scene, I began to be able to forgive myself. Definitely responsible for my own actions, but realizing that some other stuff affected me.
Right.
And not knowing how to process these things, made me, I never like consider myself to be a bad person. It just made me other than the person I feel my mother went through 19 hours of hard labor to bring to the world.
Right. Yeah. No, that's deep. And you started getting deep into that and basically finding yourself through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while you were doing that, you're in prison.
Yes.
And you're in prison for a while, I mean, you're not just in prison for a couple of years, you're in prison to where this is going to be your life for a while. Did you have any particular things, Philip, that you did that, I mean, obviously writing and studying this and getting more understanding of who you were and why you did what you did and how you acted to certain things and getting an understanding of all that. Do you think that was kind of an escape for you while you were in prison to open your mind and get all that new knowledge that kept you, I don't know, what would that be called? Almost inspired of the mind?
Definitely. every day would look the same. If you didn't learn something new, then every day was the same. So I got obsessed with knowledge. I learned from every religion, every gang, every person. And about 4 years in, I joined the Nation of Islam. I became the minister of the Nation of Islam for the rest of my bid. And that just took everything that I thought I was to a whole nother level. And you know, and when I practice something, I do it wholeheartedly. When I gang banged hard. When I was pushing what we call the program, you know, I pushed the program hard. You know, I prayed when I was supposed to pray. I ate the way I was supposed to eat. I fasted the way I was supposed to fast, and therefore I reaped the ultimate benefit of that. So, you know, nobody can tell me whether it works or don't work, because I'm clear evidence that it works if you let it. In the Nation of Islam, I use that platform to, you know, maintain truces on the yard with gangs, with religions. Sometimes it didn't work out as peaceful as we planned. I did 3 years in Bergamax for too much influence. You know,
I think it's always interesting how that happens though in the prison world, because people don't understand that if you get too much what the BOP or the prison believes is too much leverage, too much authority, too much influence, they don't like that. They pull you out.
So, you know, and you know, so I had to file a lawsuit to get out of segregation. And what the judge said was, you're not in segregation because of what you did, but you're there because of what you have the potential to do. He who can stop a riot can start a riot. So
right.
kind of just woke me up. You know, prior to that, you know, you couldn't touch me on the yard unless I, you know, nodded permission. I moved with a mob, and they were very serious mob. I came out of there like, you know what, I gotta be quiet. I gotta find a different way to move, and I gotta maneuver my way up out of here, you know, and I did that.
It's interesting though, Phillip, because everything about prison is adapting, because you're in an environment, a primitive environment, and you pivoted and adapted again. I mean, you adapted the first go in one way, and you pivoted again while you were still in prison and adapted another way.
And the funny thing about that is I had big homies who had been down, and they used to be like, man, you got to get involved. You got too much time. And I used to, I don't care about this. I don't care about that. And then I looked up a few years later, and it's all I cared about. I have a theory that I call, you have to come on in. Like, I believe if you got a year, 2 years, you maybe can, you know, stay in this place where you're here, but your mind is free. Right. But I think when you had the type of time that I had, you got to come on in. I had to stop worrying about what this old girlfriend was doing. You know, that stuff. You know,
or it'll bring you down.
She's sleeping with the ops and pregnant with the enemy. And, you know, so I'm like, you know, I got to let the world
go
what the world is going to do, and I got to focus on me. You know what I mean? So, and again, just studying, working out, bro, you know, and just, you know, preparing for the road that whenever I do come home, I'll be ready. Like, I was politicized. You know, I started doing poetry with PCAP in the University of Michigan. You know what I mean?
So it's not like you had forgotten about the outside, because everything that you were doing, Phillip, was really preparing yourself to step out and engage the outside. Because I think that's one of the interesting things about your story is there's a lot of people. Well, I mean, I know people that have been in for 2-3 years and they never rebound. It's one of those things that always and will ever be the thing that they use as the crutch that they can't get back into society. I thought the interesting thing about your story is that you used your time to transform yourself, self-evaluate, make the best parts of you bigger, and when you stepped back into society, you started doing, you know, big things. I mean, the things that I always say that there's so many things out in our society. One of the things I think that, we look at right now, because our society is so messed up, is we don't communicate anymore. It's one side over here, one side over there, and they never hear each other. And I think one of the things, whether it's Marvin Cotton Jr. or Darrell Woods Sr. or you, when I ever talk to you guys, it's interesting how you're always looking to bring it together, always figure out a way that everybody can be stronger, bonded together. And that's the thing overall society's missing now. And I'm not just talking about Detroit, I'm just talking about anywhere. I mean, politics in general, you've got the left and the right, and they're at enemy wars. And so I think, your voice is so powerful because of what you went through, how you went through it, how you survived, and then how you came out. Because a lot of times you can have those elements, but how you come out of that, that's the end of the story. And you ended up carrying on. So when you got closer, because you were in for so, what did it feel like to you to be getting closer to the door after that amount of time?
It was terrifying, man. It was scary. It was but not, so fear induces fight, flight, freeze, right?
Yeah.
It was definitely not flight nor freeze. It was terrifying, but I was ready to fight the good fight. I believed in my mind. I believed in my willpower. I have no bad relationships. Even the beef that I did have, we end up, growing up and a lot of us falling in love with one another, after bloodshed, after loss on both sides, right? And that's how I'm able to tell the youth today that it's doable, because I've done it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it was
it.
scary, man. It was scary, but I felt like, we used to call it back to where we belong. I knew I would go home one day. I believed I deserved to go home. I believe I had something to contribute to the society. You know what I mean?
What was it like getting out that day, Phillip? After all that time, I mean, you walk out. What's the feelings you're feeling? Walk me through that.
So I caught the Greyhound from Jackson, Michigan to downtown Detroit. Yeah. My sister picked me up. I had on the Browns that they give you, and I'm in my Foot Locker, and a whole bunch of paperwork and plans, man. I got to the house. I paroled to stay with my uncle. We do music. He had a studio, perfect environment. He gave me a pair of pants. I didn't have a belt. I'm walking around holding the pants up. but I was happy, man. I didn't think about tomorrow or what, it'll get serious in a minute. That's how I felt. Like, let's just absorb.
Enjoy it.
Family pulling up, friends pulling up. Let's just take it all in. And tomorrow it'll be serious enough, and just went like, I was humble, man. What I tell guys is, everything that was offered to me, I took, whether it was a $10 voucher for an ID, a $50 voucher for work clothes, whatever it was, I took it. I got a job with Habitat for Humanity when they said I couldn't. I pressed, I talked to people, I maneuvered, I was building houses and rehabbing homes in my old neighborhood. I was.
I don't want to paint over that, because I think that's a big thing you just hit on, Phillip, is so many people use the excuse that they can't get back into the world because they're an ex-felon. That I've got this I've got a tattooed on my forehead. I'm an ex-felon, and they can discriminate against me when I go for a job or wherever I go. But you have to work twice as hard to get that. And, if you really want it, they got to see your passion, that I'm that guy, I'm not this guy. And you did that. And that had to made you feel like you were making progress in something that a lot of people just weren't doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was just that humility piece, man. I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. Like, we had these high expectations, but we don't talk about what we're going to put in to reap those, that level of benefit, right? So I came out ready to pay my dues, man. I knew for a fact that I owed society, but I also felt like society owed me. You know, if I'm a son of the community and you know, and I return, you know, will you help me be successful or just leave me and thereby I becoming what I was, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I believe reentry is society's responsibility, or
Yeah.
not, and see what happens, right? So you know, I came out like I'm coming to give what I owe, and I'm definitely coming to get what's owed to me, even if that's a job, even if that's decent living, even if that's you know, whatever it may be, you know. So and then, you know, I feel like if I was coming to make excuses, I should have never came out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And people don't really like that anyway. You know, it's like in prison. People don't like whiners. They don't like people who, I
Yeah,
can't believe I'm here. I didn't do this or all that. That you want somebody just to kind of go over to the other side, get over that, and come back when you're done,
that's
because
right.
it's not going to change. You got to get used to it and live in it.
We call it suck.
Uh, yeah, exactly. But Phillip, when did you start realizing once you got your feet under you? What was the biggest change for you? Like since you'd been in, because I'm trying to think, you got out in 2009.
Yeah, from
So
90.
the whole like smartphone and
Uh,
technology and all that, that had to be weird, wasn't
it was so weird. I spent a few days sitting in the corner with the phone.
it?
You know, within a year, I was recording and mixing my own music. I was doing graphic designs, making my own flyers.
So you picked it up fast.
Yeah, I would sit there and just go and click and unclick and until I figured it out. You know, I knew that the technology was a big part of the way the world worked, but it
Yeah,
also made a lot of stuff easy. You know, I published my own book. I
yeah.
turned $250,000 a book offer because I didn't want to sell the rights to my story 100%.
Uh-huh.
I don't regret that decision. I was called crazy, blind, deaf, and dumb. Um, I don't regret that. You know, yeah, I published my own book. Like, where could you go and open up a template, and all you got to do is copy and paste, and the book is done, or you know, push a button and you live to the whole world. Like the capacity of technology was mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know, at my time, you know, if you had what they call followers or you had a name, you earned it the iron way. You know, it wasn't no likes and hearts and stuff. You had to really get out there and get it, man. So, but I'm like, you know, I'm about to run amok, man. I got probably 25 music videos.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. How did you get into all that? Because, you know,
I've been into music since I was like 8 years old. My
so it was
uncle,
kind of in the family. Was
oh
it
yeah, Uncle
uncles and
DJ, you
yeah,
know, he saved me, man. He moved
yeah,
in with hip hop and techno, and I
yeah.
was Michael Jackson crazy. Yeah, he saved me. But yep. So you know, I love music. I always been into music. So I came home again. He had the studio.
Yeah,
One of my homeboys be gifted me a video. And I'm
yeah.
like, man, you know, I'm thinking the person gonna pull up with this little camera. You know, shout out to my man Aunt Cherry, shout out to my man Boudet, right? With old cameras and stuff, man. A lot of people, and it was amazing. And then he texts me and say, get on channel, I think it was 38 at the time, and the video
Yeah.
was on TV, right? So I'm like,
Wow.
ooh, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And it's not that I ever, came out with the thought, I want to be a rapper. I'm going to be a rapper. I actually think that time was sacrificed during my incarceration,
Yeah.
but it is something I love to do, and it's available to me to do it. So I'm doing
Yeah. Got to do it, man. Follow
it.
your passion.
Yeah.
Well, what made you? Because I obviously you kind of found your way and your thinking in prison. When you got out, Phillip, were you thinking I'm going to go and I'm going to do some things in my community, the community I know, and I'm going to start affecting change? how did that come about? Because I mean, you established and founded organizations that began doing some incredible things for the community. Did you have that confidence right away, or did you kind of feel your way around and think, okay, no, I need to do this. I'm the one that wants to do this.
I definitely didn't have that confidence. So the nonprofit game and the corporate game and the credit game, that's not something that we're taught where I come from. So, you know, so I was writing inside for an organization called PCAP, Prisoner Creative Arts Project. Rest in heaven to my man, Buzz Alexander, who was an angel to me, man. I would go to Ann Arbor, recite poetry, go to different panels, you know, traveling with him. And through him, I met a brother from Albuquerque, New Mexico, named Albino Garcia. Shout out to my mentor, my main man, OG. He flew out to New York. I got on the board of the Circle for Justice Innovations.
Yeah.
We did on that board. So it's people with money and people who've been there and done that. They come together, basically put the money on the table. We raise more money and we say, you know, people write grants and we go over the grants and look, and I'm learning this thing from the other side. I'm looking at what the funders are looking for. I'm looking like how it needs to be structured. So, you know, I went to Albuquerque. I saw my man's La Placita, blew my mind, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, and I started asking questions, man. He answered, you know, gave me some things to do, and I came home and I did them. You know, 2017, you know, RAHAM was born. You know, if you're able to respond, you're responsible. So that's where it comes from. And, you know, the first 3 years was hard. Anything that got done or halfway done came out of my pocket when I didn't even have pockets. You know, I've been homeless twice since I've been home. It ain't been no crystal stair, brother. You know,
and it never is. You know, that's the thing. And I think one of the things that you said there is so important, especially for the youth, to understand that if you see somebody doing something that you want to do, but you don't know how to do it, humbling yourself and just asking them, hey, man, how's that work? It's like getting the answers to the test before the test, because a lot of these people who will mentor you, they're willing to tell you because they're happy that they're doing what they're doing and they're doing it well. And you went out, you got all around the right people and you got the right mentors to be able to get the answers that you needed to do what you were wanting to do.
Yeah. And I listened, man. He was great. He introduced me to my man George Galvez in Oakland. I went out there, looked at what he was doing, learned from him. And, you know, I got these guys on tap. I could reach out and say,
sure,
what's up with it? I'm stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in my own office. We got 3 offices right here, open space. You know, we've been doing it, man. I bought.
Well, I don't want to, and Phillip, I don't want to cross over what you said about the homeless thing, because I've got a good friend of mine that was homeless twice, and he's out in LA now and has his own production company, and he survived that. How did you get through that?
Oh man, you know, so you know, I took it in stride, man. Like, you know, I wasn't worried about it. You know, one of the ways I became homeless is because I had finally was able to secure a lease. You know, I didn't want to keep living with my woman's name on everything, talking about I'm at a castle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's part of it, you know, and I finally had found an apartment that would, you know, give me a lease. And what happened with that was when the property management or whatever switched over, they came with that criteria, we don't lease to felons. So it was immediate eviction. My baby boy was in the womb, you know, bless my sister, she opened her house, you know, but you know, and I took it in stride, man. I knew it was the moment. I didn't allow it to make me desperate. I'm about to go rob the world and kick in 100 doors, right? No, you know, hold your stomach and rock out to the morning. What is this trying to tell me, right? So RAHAM, we very passionate about equal and fair housing for formerly incarcerated people. You know, when you go through some trauma, it's from whence your purpose comes, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've been working with Ceasefire Detroit for the last 2, 3 years, and though it's stressful and severely, a dream come true, man. Where I'm working with young gang involved youth, and nobody understands them better than me, man. Nobody get it like I get it. Nobody like can do my part of the job like I do it, and it's something I would do for free.
Yeah.
So to be able to draw some sustenance from that is like, again, a testament to favor.
Yeah. I'm sure that fills you up though, because these guys they're younger. I mean, obviously you can identify with what they're going through in their lives, and being able to show them that there's a different path, and being able to show them that the path that you've chosen now is filling you up and making you who you are, and you're doing so many good things. So many times I think, Phillip, the younger people, if given a fork in the road, they'll look at both options. It's just that so many times there's not that fork to look at both options. They're only seeing one path. And what you're doing is you're able to show them the path that they are on, and then the path that you lived, and now you're able to use your experience of the path that you're living now. And God, that's just that's so powerful for people who are looking for light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh man, it's sometimes it's like a dream, man. I just left a press conference with the mayor, man. It's like a dream, and he knows me, and we shake hands, and he called me by name, right? Just to be at these tables advocating for my people, man. To be able to say, look at me as an example. They need incarceration, they need resources, right? So, to have that capacity and the capacity to know when to change clothes and put my suit on and talk level of language, or to be able to write at another level of engagement, right? To move funders and get grants, right? It's just, again, it's favor, man, to just be able to think and move, brother.
And I think what you're doing there, Phillip, is that when people go through the world of prison, and you're able to get things out and do things on the right path, having that seat at the table and having the ability to leverage your past to be the legitimate voice, the real voice at the table, so that they listen to you. See, I think a lot of the things that happen, there's probably these roundtable discussions, but they don't have the right people at the table that can really affect the change. An idea out here without the right voice is just an idea, but you put somebody at the table who's lived it and knows it and also wants to implement it, that's when real change happens, because that action can be implemented, and that's when things happen. That's why I think what you're doing right now in the community has so much real purpose to it, because you are who you are. You're not just somebody that flew in and you're going to talk to them and fly out. It. You've lived it. You've lived the streets of it, and they know it. And that's whatever that vibe is. That's the real stuff.
It has yet to be a youth or a group of men, young men or women, that I haven't been able to reach.
Yep.
I tell people, give me the worst of the worst, the ones that you think are the most, because those are the most pained.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the ones that need, they a hug away from a breakdown. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To society, and I do get it, right? You're a menace, you're doing this, that, and the other, but why? You know what I mean? Like, why am I a menace to society, right? I wasn't a little baby and say, look, Phillip, when you grow, what you gonna be? And I said, I'm gonna be a menace to society. No, I used to say,
right.
I'm gonna be, at one point, I was gonna be a police officer, right? So, it just don't happen that way, man. But nobody, can do what I do better, man.
No, and I think the other thing that's so effective is that you can tell that. I mean, just you telling the story today, I feel your story of what you told, how you were in prison and you're like, why do I think this way?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get into psychology. Why am I triggered like this? I got a lot of shit inside here that I haven't let loose and I haven't let go. But and then you got deeper into it and you invested the time by you telling that story and relaying it to people and them saying, me too, I get it. That's, looking through all the stuff that you've got going on, you see, because you talk about, that neighborhood used to be kind of like Norman Rockwell, and then it fell back into one of the worst neighborhoods there is. That's not ever saying that it can't be what it needs to be or should be, where the community, if the community comes together like they want to.
It can and it will be. We trying to buy everything. And
yeah, you're clearing lots, you're beautifying, you're putting skills in.
I'm a social scientist, man. I was a young teenager and I sat on the roof with an AK-47 and I devised a plan to what I call corner my neighborhood. And I understood that we needed to take away the street lights. I understood that we needed to monitor the traffic that came through here. So as a grown man from a pure place, I know how to turn it around.
Yep.
This is not theory. This is practice. It's my old neighborhood, Chalmers and 7 Mile. It's a high opioid overdose prostitution, what you would call a red light district. I say simply, put up some 5,000 lumens motion lights and it'll go away.
Yeah.
You don't have to lock nobody up. You don't got to huff and puff. You don't got to argue. You don't got to push and shove. Just turn the lights on.
Turn the lights on.
First thing we did right here was turn the lights off. Turn the lights on.
Yeah.
So
how profound is that?
It's 22 new built homes over there. They beautiful. We moving on the recreation piece now, which I think is very important. To get a youth something to do, but it's doable, man. It's just about who gonna have the patience and the wait.
Well, and I think one of the other things, and I hope these type of things that you're talking about, Phillip, you were talking about, you reached out to mentors that were like in San Francisco and New Mexico and all around, hopefully as this continues to grow, that these are things that just seep out and they become part of every community so that what works is duplicated to all of the neighborhoods that need it, so that it becomes something that it's a system and a process that everybody knows this is the way to affect change into a community. And the things that you're doing with that are those things. Those are things that you could duplicate in St. Louis, or you could duplicate in another area that needs it. Those are things that if they come together, you put an umbrella over the top, there's a lot that could happen because you're affecting it right there. It could be duplicated other places.
I say it all the time. If we can do it in the 48205 zip code, which is considered one of the most dangerous places in the country, we can do it anywhere. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's just being blessed, man. I'm married now, 2 children.
Tell me about that. Tell me about your life with your kids and everything. How old are they?
It's great. They drive me crazy, but it's absolutely
boy, girls.
A girl 2 and a boy 6. They got their own company, Big Head Billionaires LLC. And it's just great, man. That people say you're a great dad, and I say, and I thank my daddy for it, because I know what I needed and wanted.
And you're filling that up.
So I thank him irregardless to his absence. I love him, and he would be a fool to not want to embrace a son like me.
No doubt. Well, so I got to ask you this: out of everything that you've gone through in your journey, and you've gone through a lot, and you're affecting a lot, looking back at what you've gone through, what do you think your biggest takeaway for people listening to this about what they need to do, or how you did, of how you've lived through your life?
It's not over. It's not over till it's over.
Yeah.
When there's a will, there's a way.
Yep.
Get around the right people. You know what I mean? And humble yourself, man. You know, that's it, man.
Bottle that up right there. I love it. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, humble yourself, man. Right
Humble yourself.
now. That's the biggest thing, you know. But you know, and for me, it's even harder. Again, you know, I had just did 15 years where I was treated like prison royalty. So to
Sure.
have, you know, to come out to society and be normal, you know, you know, it takes some humbling. But I was always humble. You know, I never thought me worthy, bro. So it's always a constant striving to prove worthy. Like, you know, God, you've given me this capacity, you've given me this mind, you've given me this chance. Like, I just want to prove worthy, man. You know, even with my job, bro. Shout out to Ceasefire, bro. Shout out to my team. I got a team man, we got a team from heaven, man. Nothing like I ever seen before of selfless, fearless people, bro. You know, that show up when the blood on the wall, when the baby been shot, you know, trying to comfort siblings and mothers, man, you know, and oh, bro,
It's powerful. It's powerful stuff. And I'll tell you the other thing I noticed in the common thread reading through all your different things and hearing your story today, you've always been a leader. And, you know, leaders have a vision, but they have to take action with their vision, and they use their own experience to affect change by using that experience. And that's what you're doing. And you're doing it humbly, which that's maybe the secret sauce of all of it is you're staying grounded with it. You got your kids, you got your wife, you got everything that you got going, and you're creating good. And man, Phillip, I wish I could multiply you and just, you know, have one of those machines and we could send out like 300 Phillips.
We working on it, brother. Yes, I'm giving it up. I'm not hoarding none of it. I'm giving it up, man. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Phillip, man,
I appreciate you. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate what you're doing for us. Shout out to my man Marvin Cotton.
Yes.
For the opportunity. Brother out here doing great work. Did not let the beast defeat him. You know what I'm talking about? And that's what it is, you know. Come on in, have a seat. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We got more people. We got more people for Phillip seeing here. We better get off this podcast before he's got a room full. Phillip, thank you, man, for being my guest today. For those out there, we were talking about books. I've got one: Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting and Finally Setting Yourself Free, a memoir. And all those people who have Apple and Spotify, go to Apple, leave a review. Those really help out. Sends people. You get little bars at the top, share the show, get a notification. Love that. When I was in prison, I was always writing back to my people, stay strong. I'll do the same.
Man.
Phillip, you're a good man. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.